So many people in their lives have secrets. Even I have my secrets. But today's story is about how I found out my teacher's secret. Or in reality, it was my substitute teacher, but close enough. But before I do get into the story, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we got a lot more crazy stories on this channel than you guys expect. Also, not to mention, I go live on Kick streaming and telling crazy stories just like this one. So if you haven't joined it on the Kick streams, please do it because, well, it's more embarrassing telling these live than on YouTube. But anyways, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story is about, well, if you guys read the title, my teacher was a Devil's Hub star, and the way this ended up happening was super weird. I remember one day I ended up going to physical education class, or PE as people would say, and when I went there, I remember our teacher that we originally had, the old sweaty guy that no one liked, wasn't there. I remember me and my class, we all stood around the gym not knowing what was going on until out of nowhere a really hot blonde walked in. Now, no one recognized this girl and she wasn't that tall. So us thinking that she was another student, I remember I walked up to her and said, "Oh yeah, the teacher isn't here yet, so you're not late, but honestly, like, whoever this teacher is, bro, is mad dumb." I remember the girl ended up looking at me and said, "You do realize I'm your teacher, right?" "Huh?" is what I said. And then that's when I figured out that she was a substitute teacher filling in for our old man teacher that no one liked. I remember I looked at her and said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know," is what I said. And she said, "Oh, like, just don't worry about it." Anyways, I remember basically from there, we ended up basically getting an introduction and people called her Mrs. M. She didn't want to say her actual name for some reason, which I guess we kind of respected, but we didn't understand why. Going on from there, I remember basically we did the class. We, ran around the gym, we played dodgeball, and that was basically it. But I remember after class, when class ended, all the guys went to the locker room to basically get changed to normal clothing since we were in our PE class clothing. And out of nowhere, when all the guys were in there changing their clothes, one of the really weird guys in our class, kind of like a nerd, but more, I guess, creepy in a way, ended up speaking up saying, "Did no one recognize who our teacher just was?" I remember all the guys started looking at him thinking, what is he talking about? And then that's when he said, "Bro, don't you know, like, our teacher's literally a HUBSTAR." When he said that, we all started laughing. Yes, the teacher was really hot, but there's no way the school would invite someone that was literally on the Devil's Hub into our school. So obviously none of us believed him. But what ended up happening later on, well, proved he was right. I remember what ended up happening was the next day at school, a lot of us went to class early, and the rumor went around that the teacher was a Devil's Hub star. But obviously no one actually believed it. So as we got ready for PE class, I remember what I decided to do was some investigating. I remember instead of getting changed, I got changed a bit earlier just so I could be at the gym early. And me, instead of waiting in the gym, I decided to walk around and go to the gym office because obviously the gym teacher has his own office. When I went in there, I remember no one was in there. It was just an old, stinky, empty office. So what I decided to do was look around and see if there was any evidence of what the guy said being true. As I was walking around and looking at, basically papers and flyers, one thing I realized was that Mrs. M's last name, because apparently it was on a sheet of paper that had, the class list. So when I looked at her name, I remember I pulled out my phone and took a picture of her name on the top of the paper. When I got it though, I remember I accidentally moved the mouse on the computer, and what I saw really freaked me out because right as I moved it, I remember the screen turned on and Mrs. M's video was literally playing. And if you guys are wondering what video, it was literally her doing the Devil's Tango with 6 other guys. Like, holy cow, dude. I remember I started freaking out and I instantly closed the browser. And when I did, I basically ran out of the office as fast as I could. But as I was about to run out, I ended up bumping into Mrs. M. She looked at me kind of awkwardly saying, Bubba, why were you in my office?" No reason. And I ended up going straight to the gym and basically started getting ready for class. class. I remember all the students were standing around as well, waiting for class to start. And I remember I walked up to the kid that mentioned that Mrs. M was literally a devil's hub star. And I told him, bro, don't say this out loud, but I think you're right. He ended up looking at me and said,
Oh, did you see the video?
yeah, I did see the video, is what I said. And at that point, I remember he started laughing. And when he started laughing, I remember Mrs. M was in front of the class and saw us both laughing. At that point, I remember she looked at both of us and said, Bubba, is something funny you want to say to the class? At that point, I went quiet. I didn't say anything. But then afterwards, I remember the kid beside me that mentioned it said,
Mrs. M, how do you walk every day?
I remember I looked at the kid and I'm like, gosh, this guy really has some balls. But then Mrs. M didn't know what he was talking about, so she kind of just put it aside and said, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but I walk with 2 legs. Going on from there, I remember basically after gym class that day, me and all the guys went back to the locker room and I decided to express my amazing discovery to the whole entire guys' locker room. Wow, we're really messed up in there, aren't we, boys? But going on, I remember I ended up pulling out my phone and showing the video to basically everyone in the locker room. We were all watching this video and we were all freaking out saying, no way, that's our teacher? But this is where things get really bad because out of nowhere, I remember Mrs. M ended up walking into the boys' change room. She walked in there because apparently our audio was too loud and she knew what we were watching. And when she walked in there, she walked up to me and said, Bubba, detention now. Which honestly surprised me because usually if you do something bad to a teacher, you would get sent to the office. But me, I got sent to detention because she wanted to sit down and talk to me throughout the whole school day about what privacy means and basically teach me lessons about privacy, which is kind of funny because she's literally an internet devil's tango star. Like, what did she really expect from a bunch of teenagers? I don't know. But to this day, I'm not gonna lie, I still watch Mrs. M's videos once in a while, and I gotta say, she is still fine as hell. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.